if you are somebody who doesn't want to know anything when it comes to The Flash, I encourage you to possibly
enter the Speed Force.
Look away. All right. So the last time that they showed, there's still no Henry Cavill in it. However, that's not to say that he will not be in the film, because there are multiple cuts of this movie and they're still trying to piece things together, how everything flows effectively. And it could be something that they add in later. However, the beginning of the movie does heavily take place with Ben Affleck's Batman and the Flash kind of thwarting some bad guys destroying a building. However, it goes wrong and Ben Affleck's Batman almost dies, but is saved by Wonder Woman. So I think that's kind of cool. We're going to see Wonder Woman. We're going to see Batman. We are going to see some of the other Justice League members as well. It's just hard to imagine that we're not going to see Cavill in this movie, because the only other one that we won't see is Cyborg, but we know the behind the scenes stuff that went on there. In the first 20 minutes, that's probably where we would see him pop up if he does. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you go into that movie. If within the first 20 minutes you don't see Cavill, you probably won't in the movie unless they make a drastic change to the ending. No Black Flash, no Reverse Flash, nothing like that. There is no... none of them are the villains of this movie. Essentially, and I have to say, this stems back to probably last year sometime, where Taylor from The Culture Nerd said, like, Flash is essentially his own villain in this. Flash and Time. Those are the villains of this movie. And everything I'm reading here is that. Like, that is what it is. There's no Reverse Flash. There's no Black Flash, anything like that. Now, when it comes to the death of his mother, because how is that going to play out? Why is it that Henry, his father, how is it and why is it that he is the one convicted of the murder? Well, there's a home invasion that takes place and Nora is killed. But Henry is out at the store because they went shopping. They forgot something. So Henry decides to go to the store to get what they forgot. I think it's like spaghetti sauce or something like that. The cameras at the store are not angled well and don't have a really good picture on it being Henry, which is why he gets put in prison. That is actually what is the motive behind Ben Affleck's Batman, or Bruce Wayne, and Barry Allen working together, because they're working together to try and find a way to get Henry Allen free. Andrew also goes, not having Reverse Flash being Barry's mom's killer is completely changing the origin of the character. Now,
which I was going to comment on, and just, that's while I appreciate trying to reimagine things, we're already getting a reimagined version of Flashpoint. It's not going to be as, I don't want to, I guess, lack of a better term, crazy as the Flashpoint comic or even animated movie was.
Yeah.
It's not going to include characters that were essentially really vital to that story. And, to hear that the origin story also will be having some liberties when it's very simple, could be just a yellow Flash thrown into the sightseeing, doesn't even have to have a character cast or actor casted for the role. So it's a little disappointing to hear that off initial hearing, but it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, I'm not going to sit there and say it's not possible that it isn't Reverse Flash. It could be Reverse Flash. We don't necessarily, from what I'm told, do we see the murder happen? We may not see the murder. It may happen off screen. And they just may say it was a home invasion.
Right. Okay. Right. No, man, that makes sense.
So it still could be. Again, I'm going off of what I have here. I didn't see it. If I saw it, I could say, oh, that, but I didn't see it. Now, the big reason why I wanted to bring that up is because what did the Flash do in Zack Snyder's Justice League? He went back in time and saved the world. And Batman says, you went back in time and saved the world by 1 second. So that kind of puts into Barry's head, I can go back in time and save my mother. And when he does that, he comes to realize, after he does that, he's no longer in, we'll call it the Snyderverse. And he tries to get back to the Snyderverse, but something is stopping him. He can't get back to the Snyderverse. He can't get back. So he goes and tries to find Batman and comes to Michael Keaton's Batman.
Right.
And that's where all the shenanigans happen there. He then also comes across a younger version of himself, a younger version of Barry. He's trying to figure out what's going on, realizes there's no Superman in this world, realizes that things are much different than what was in the world that he knew. They find out that there's a super being being held, and they go to rescue because they think it's Superman, but it ends up being Supergirl. So very reminiscent of the Flashpoint storyline, this time it being Supergirl, and rescue her. However, it seems that this is taking place right around the time that Feora and Zod are coming to Earth. Supergirl fights Zod and Feora. I don't know. I wasn't told what happens there. But I do know, or they did say that Supergirl kind of holds her own. Keaton's Batman. This is, I know, what a lot of people wanted to hear. This is the little bit that I have about Keaton's Batman. The suit that he has, which I just showed you, allows him to be a lot more agile than he was when we saw him last in 1992. However, his tech, his gadgets, all of that still seem dated to today's standards, but he is a lot more capable than what we've seen in the past. So that kind of makes me excited to see what they can do with his Batman. And, I know he'll be an aging Batman, but it would be cool to see him maybe not just turn like this.
Right. No, I think just seeing him and following up on that universe is going to be something that's going to be really nostalgic and cool for people. I know that I will be rewatching Michael Keaton's Batman movies right before the Flash movie, and
makes sense.
Just wanted to touch upon something that you brought up earlier, which is kind of interesting to me. Is so he is aware that if he acknowledges that he is aware of traveling back in time, doesn't that make Zack Snyder's Justice League canon to the Flash more than the 2017 version of it?
So real quick, Andrew, even though Michael Keaton is 70, his Batsuit can let him fight better. It's not that the Batsuit is making him fight better. It's that it's giving him a little more flexibility than what we've seen in the past. So we showed that suit, and you can actually, I can actually see on that suit, like it does look like it would form a little bit better to allow him to move better than what the suits did in the early 90s. So I'm okay with that. I don't think it's going to be like Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, where he puts on like a contraption on his leg so he can kick and break, cinder blocks or anything. I don't think it's anything like that to Zack Snyder's Justice League. So that is kind of something that is, and I've heard it two different ways, that it's in the movie, but it can also be out of the movie. They haven't decided if they're going to connect this to the Snyder Cut or to Justice League. And they kind of, that was Affleck. Affleck's influence was to add that part into the movie. He is a supporter of Zack. He loved what Zack was creating. So whenever he had the script, he kind of was like, well, I want this added. Let's do this for me to sign on. And that's when it was added. However, they did do alternate takes. So I think ultimately it's going to come down to what works better in the movie. And essentially, when we've said this before, this is reestablishing the DC universe in a way where some of the past events are no longer part of the main continuity. So even if they mention Justice League, by the time this movie ends, that's no longer part of that main continuity. Same with Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's no longer, after this movie, it's no longer part of the main continuity. So that's, one way you can take it. You can look at it like, okay, they're referencing the Snyder Cut. Cool. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter which one they reference at all. The thing Andrew asks is the Batman Wayne from Batman 89 and Returns? By all accounts, yes. It is the same Batman.
We would assume so. Honestly, at this point, I'm just assuming that that's what the connection is going to be. It'd be really interesting to see if they deviate from that and just completely introduce a new iteration of Bruce Wayne Batman that's not connected to Batman 89 and Batman Returns. So it's gonna be interesting. That's for sure.
A couple more things real quick. Aquaman does show up in this film. He does talk with Barry a few times, and there's at the end of the movie when Barry does what he does to fix the timeline fix and things get reestablished. It ends up being where he's still within the Keaton Batman verse, kind of, but not really. It's not the Burton verse, but it's also not the Snyder verse. It's kind of the two of them combined in a way moving forward. And Aquaman's there as well, and Wonder Woman's part of it. But they're talking about, and Barry mentions Superman, and it confuses Aquaman. He's like, Superman? Nobody knows about Superman at that point in time. So that's pretty much the movie. You're gonna hear some things. There's a lot of false information out there, and honestly, I'm gonna say this right now: take this all with a grain of salt. I trust the person who gave me this because they were right on when it came to Spider-Man with a lot of stuff. But take this with a grain of salt because I don't want you to think because there are so many different cuts out there. Don't sit there and say, "Oh, well, you said this and it didn't happen." Well, I think you're going to see variations of this, maybe not exact, but you're going to see this play out very similar to this. But if you hear things about nightmare timeline, mother boxes, stuff like that, that's all false. None of that is in any of the cuts of any film, any of this movie. No cuts of it have mother boxes or the nightmare timeline. So don't think that at all.
And it bears worth repeating that while we are saying this now, the Flash is delayed a pretty decent amount of time, and with just something that we spoke upon in previous episodes and even before, the merger is really a chance for David to take an assessment of everything moving forward, and with what we just talked about with the DC films getting a new head, with the amount of time that passes by in between that, it's something that could change and is subject to change. Like you said, Henry Cavill could very well be added into it that establishes him back as the Superman of that universe. It sounds like that's something that could be very easily added. Like it could just cut Aquaman's apparent line and then just have it as that he's just in part of the lineup. But, we just have to wait and see. As of right now, that's where it stands, but we don't really know what's going to happen. That did receive the lengthiest delay out of the films that were delayed in the DC films, and that could very well be for a reason. So that could very well be for VFX reasons, or and that could also very well be for people to take an outside look at it and see, well, okay, so this could reestablish our universe, but is it reestablishing it in the current cut that were variations that are there in the direction that we want it to be in? And I'm just guessing from my head and from what I've just gathered with everything that has come out about the movie. Sounds like we're going to have an interesting Justice League lineup moving forward. Not something that I'm totally against, but, I think it's going to be something that is going to be taken under consideration. It doesn't sound like it would be a big chunk of the movie that would have to get changed. Sounds like truly would just have to be like the ending that would need to be tweaked here and there. But I think it's something that is subject to change. So like you said, take it with a grain of salt now, but in 6 months, we could be talking about reports of like massive reshoots happening. So just gotta wait and see on that one.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And Andrew says one of the great things about Batman '89 was that it was its own thing, and technically that's still going to be the case. It's still going to be its own thing because even when this movie ends, it's not that it's the Keaton verse. It's not that it's the Snyder verse. It is a new reestablished DC universe moving forward. And I wish so bad that I could tell you what I know for this film. There's something that truly, to me, just makes me excited for the future more than I've been to this point. But I promised I wouldn't say anything. It's really freaking cool. I hope to God that they keep that bit in the film because I think people are going to walk out of the theater like, holy shit. And yeah, I
Something
can't.
that just points the arrow towards the future in a way.
In a way, yes. But also the past. Remember, we're talking about a Flash movie here, so
Right.
it's the future as well as the past. So I really, really wish I could talk about it, but I can't. So just know that if it's in the movie when they release it, if they keep it in the film, everybody, whether you're a fan of what DC's doing now, whether you're a fan of the Snyderverse, whatever it is, I truly think that this will excite everybody. So keep that in mind.
I had a